All right. We'll jump in and start out with essentially the agenda for today. Our agenda today is we'll have a couple slides about iView Now just to describe our service. But the most important thing we're going to cover today is how to sell video alarm verification, video and video alarm verification. We're going to start with the market. Who is your potential customer? What can you or should you sell them? We're going to talk about marketing to these folks, explaining the value proposition or the selling process for video alarm verification and video, and what's in it for you. What's in it for you and your company. So to start with, as far as iView Now goes, we catch video. We're really agnostic in terms of the devices. We present video to the operator. We present video to your end user. The installation hardware to accomplish our service is off-the-shelf stuff, off-the-shelf control panels, Honeywell, DMP, GE, Bosch, DSC. I see David's on the line. We're hoping later this week to learn that perhaps DSC is going to have some functionality for us as well. But essentially it's a control panel and a relay. The relay is punched into the back of the NVR or the DVR, and then it's an off-the-shelf storage device. Honeywell, Hikvision, OpenEye, Briggs Logic, Axis Communications. We're actually an Axis application development partner as well, VideoIQ. The things that we've got cooking, stuff that we're going to have done by ESX, VideoFide. We'll have VideoFide in our interface, but we'll also be able to host Frontel in our cloud. It's a very exciting way to deploy VideoFide for your central station. EverFocus and Spico are also in process. So the most important thing to say is there's no proprietary hardware. We're not selling hardware for this functionality. We are an interface. We do have a patent that we've applied for. Our patent revolves around taking disparate video from different manufacturers, putting them into a common interface in the cloud. All right, a little more about iView Now and how it works. For your central station, your operator would receive your alarm in a traditional way. A portal is automatically opened in a second monitor that gives the operator the opportunity to live view the cameras of the facility and clips of what caused the alarm with pre-alarm. In the case of VideoFide, it will be at the moment of the alarm, but in all other devices with pre-alarm. We are recording everything the operator does within our portal. However, there's no data entry in our portal. That data all goes back to your central station software where it belongs, where your action plans reside, RP lists. We are a portal associating video with alarm events. And the important thing to say about it is there's no software and there's no hardware for the central station to invest in. This is completely browser-based service. We think an important part of this experience is for the end user. I and our entire team really believes in fast cops. However, for the end user to pay the additional monthly associated with this type of service, we've worked very hard to ensure that the end user has a quality experience on both their computers as well as their smartphones. We're compatible with iPhone, Mac, PC, Droid. Again, there is no software. This is completely browser-based. There's no apps. Apps seem like a good idea, but often in our paradigm as alarm folks, my end users, I have an alarm company, and my end users are losing their phones or upgrading their phones. And when they do, they download the client software, and then they call us to find out what the IP address of the different devices they may have been viewing or the passwords for which they might have changed. The fact that this is completely browser-based makes it a much friendlier experience for the dealer and the end user. For the end user, they're just cameras. From anywhere they've got internet connection, they can log on and view their cameras, and they can view clips associated with alarm events and alerts from their system. All right, enough about us. So let's talk about how we sell this. What's the value proposition? How can we get it to the client? The first thing we're going to talk about is starting with the market. Who's your potential customer? What can or should you sell them? The marketing. Explain the value proposition in terms of a planned presentation and what's in it for you. David had a comment about DMP. Yes, we are in fact compatible with DMP. Digital Watchdog, no, it's not on there. If it's not, I apologize. Digital Watchdog should have been on there. It would be DMP because DMP does relays. We can take anything that energizes a relay, and Digital Watchdog is one of our compatible devices. All right, let's start with the market. Who's your potential customer? I think there's a lot of them, whether that's construction, empty buildings. We focused very specifically with my alarm company, and you'll notice that this service has been fairly tailored towards the idea of small businesses, medium-sized businesses. Owners and managers today need to know what's happening in their businesses in real time. The residential market seems to be very crowded to me, with a lot of pseudo-home automation and HVAC. The residential market is a fiercely competitive place. We think this service better suits the business owner in terms of real-time notification of what's happening and their ability to run their business. So the first thing we have to do as business people before we go to market with a product is we're going to have to work out the assembly. Once you figure out who that market is and what you're going to sell them, we're going to have to figure out now what the devices are that we're going to put together to get that to happen. So you're going to need to figure out which combination of devices you're going to use to do this. What will the market bear? What we're finding is between $80 to $125 for small systems depending on the application. $80 for the end user would include security signals, video, and this interactive service. $125 looks a little more like an outdoor application for the end user. What does it cost to provide? Creation cost. As an alarm guy, this is probably only one of the few reasons, one of the best reasons that I'm in this business. We have to understand what these things cost us before we can provide them in order to make sure that these accounts that we're getting, these accounts that our industry values so much, are actually worth getting. So we need to make sure that we understand the exact equipment it's going to take to accomplish this, how much labor, the commission, and the cost of the signal path along with the central station services. All these factors are what it takes to be able to determine what the creation cost on these accounts are. So we've got a creation cost calculator. Please feel free to contact us if you'd like to get a copy of this. I know some of you guys already have it. But when we look at, if you don't, I think we must all be doing this. So we've got one. It's just a simple spreadsheet that's organized in the manner in which I'm laying it out for you. But we need to understand what we think we're going to charge for something. We need to understand what we think the reoccurring monthly. This particular model, this is just about adding cameras and an active video service to it. This is separate from the security. So in my alarm company, we mark parts up about 1.8 times. We charge, our labor rate is $85 an hour. On a simple system like this, the commission rate is 10%. And then we have a commission multiple on the monthly of 3 times. All pretty normal industry stuff. What I've also included here is the effective labor rate. That means that's what I think my installers cost me per hour. I have employees, I provide trucks, uniforms, tools, fuels, all the things it costs for me to have them. These are my direct costs. We think it takes 5 hours to put in a simple 3-camera package. I charge the central station $12. $12 is their cost to a central station for the service. 4-channel DVR, about $285. Individual eyeball cameras, fixed lens, simple camera, $65 with IRs. A little caveat with the IRs, we're really big on the idea that because we're offering pre-alarm on an alarm event, that we use IRs. We're not, the joke is we don't want to be giving a picture of black bears in the Black Forest at night to the operator to determine what's going on with the signal. An alarm can, we always lock up the storage device, power supply, relay, and ancillary wires and devices. So by the time we're done with this assembly, direct cost, about $650 in terms of equipment. A labor, that's 5 hours at $48, $240. The commission on this, that's 3 times a monthly, plus 10% of what it costs, of the 10% of the initial price, giving us a direct cost of $1,066. That's what the assembly costs us as alarm guys to put in. You can pick whatever brand you wanted. It could be any of the ones that are compatible, Honeywell, Digital Watchdog, Hikvision, any of those DVRs, any of the obviously any analog cameras. This is just an assembly that we picked. So the retail price, if we'd gone to the end user and just sold a 3-camera surveillance system, we would have charged the end user $1,771. In this particular model, we're charging $850 down, and we're adding $40 a month to the monthly. So it's a 12-month creation cost on this system. So this $40 is added onto their regular monthly monitoring. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions. I'd rather not say. I'm trying pretty hard at this point. And the question is, whose eyeball cameras are we quoting? I'd rather not say. I'm trying to be agnostic in this particular presentation. If you called me offline, I could probably be encouraged to do that. If you look at the $65, it is a name brand. I find that eyeball cameras, as an alarm guy, I can buy very low end for say $45. All the way up to say $85. I will say that this vendor started out at about $78, and we worked it to $65. Been very happy with them so far. It's 600 lines of resolution on this camera. It's got a chipset. It's some intelligence on this camera. I think if my alarm company does anything, we tend to over-engineer these things. We're competing with people perfectly happy to do 480 lines of resolution, consumer-grade crud, but we do try very hard to be a quality alarm company. So all of these devices are quality commercial-grade product. All right, so we're going to focus now back on some target marketing. We had very good success with my alarm company focusing on our existing customers. I would truly encourage you to call your existing customers if you're looking at a video service, ours or others, and let them know you're offering the service. At IVUnow, we have a call center, and we are happy to make those calls for you. There's a small fee associated with that. The experiment was we used my alarm company in Las Vegas and put my commercial account into this call center that we have. One of our partners has in IVUnow, and we were pretty overwhelmed by the response. We just didn't appreciate how many of our customers would be interested, and we would be able to send our guys out to be able to try and sell them service. We are in the process right now. Moon Security, Mike Miller's company up in Washington State, Pasco, we're now putting about 3,000 of his commercial accounts into the call center this week, and we'll be setting appointments for his sales folks. I was up there last week. Personally, we trained his sales folks. We worked on the package, worked on pricing, worked on brochures. We trained his sales staff, and this week we put his customers into this call center to set appointments so they can go sell the service. I think this is an important part of what we're doing as a company with IVUnow is that although this looks like an alarm sale, it is different enough that it needs to be tailored to the market, tailored to the alarm company to be able to be successful. I think that in all actuality, I think this might be one of the reasons why our industry has not adapted or adopted this type of service sooner and faster. New business license list. In Las Vegas, I get two lists a week, and it totals about 150 new business licenses a week are generated in Las Vegas. There's about 1 million to 1.2 million people here just from a statistical analysis. It results in about 10 appointments. Very simple questionnaire. You call them up. You ask the people on a new business license list. You notice that they've got a new business license list. Have they activated their security system? It's very simple. The answer is either yes or no. You go through it's a numbers game. By the time you're through, you'll find a number of people that are really happy you called, and you get an appointment. Of the 10 appointments we get, we sell about 4. That's conservative. It's probably closer to 5, but we sell 4 or 5 systems out of that 150 leads. What we find overwhelmingly is that these new business people are of a almost different generation of business person. They are using their phones, certainly using technology to manage their businesses in real time. We can also we do this with my alarm company in Las Vegas. Each week these new business licenses are put into our call center. The call center sets appointments for us. I would suggest to you that all leads moving forward, this is an opportunity to sell this additional service and this additional reoccurring to your clients. Go ahead and check to see if there's been any more questions. No more questions. All right. Next slide. So explaining the value proposition, selling. We really have to sell this. This is not a traditional burglar alarm. We are complete believers in a planned presentation. I think when I was reviewing these slides, it's funny, I used must in both these bullets, and I was going to try and changed the words so they weren't repetitive, but I think the fact of the matter is must really spells this out the best way I can explain it. You must have a plan presentation. We've got one, an 8-step plan presentation. It's in a can. It's part of, or as someone becomes a dealer, they're welcome to have this plan presentation to turn it into their company's voice. But this plan presentation is critical for many of our salespeople because they're either used to selling things that we've been selling, or they really don't have one. They've got sort of an unfocused habit of selling, and this really is not a traditional burglar alarm. It's not a blind burglar alarm. There are more features and benefits that the client must have related to them for them to be able to understand the difference between what this is and, say, the average ADT dealer. Another thing, second point here, is we really think that the staff, your sales staff, has to demonstrate the product. This is not a blind burglar alarm. The impact of video on business management and verification comes to life for that end user. Again, whether you're using someone else's service, some other form of video, this is not about iViewNow. This is about video in general today. I think the average, we just don't run into people that we're selling to that don't have a smartphone. So I think the plan presentation is a must. We've got one, happy to share it with our dealers. We also think that dedicated brochures to your package, the package from the previous slides in terms of being able to develop who the market is and that creation cost, it all comes down to being able to have a focused package, not dissimilar to 3 Doors and Emotion. But in this version, we can do this with a camera package where we're adding a substantial monthly that makes it worth doing. A system package keeps the sales staff, the creation cost, and the customer focused. You can notice that this one is branded to Moon. Happy to brand these to anyone who would like to have them that's a dealer. System design. We think the system design, you've got to train your sales folks. In fact, in our recent experiences with some of our dealers, and I think with someone that's on this phone line, David, the issue here is that you've got to be trained. We think the central station has to be trained. Very specifically, the sales staff has to be trained, and the installation staff has to be trained. It looks like an alarm system. It is an alarm system. It's off-the-shelf stuff. But as we relate this video event to the alarm events, it takes a little bit, it's slightly different and needs to be specifically trained to. We're happy to train on the iViewNow side, sales folks, as well as the installation staff. I think that I've got enough experience in this industry that if the technical staff is not trained correctly, they can actually inadvertently be sabotaging your sales staff. The ownership team wants to make more value. Sales staff sees value in a service or a new product. But if the installation team doesn't have buy-in, I've seen it. They'll slide up to the sales staff and say, this doesn't work, or they don't believe in it. We genuinely believe in a holistic sales or holistic training in terms of all of them. It's only been proved more to us in the last few weeks in terms of ensuring that everyone has the right training. We think a really important point is a system sketch. As an alarm company, we do not allow anything to be sold or installed without a system sketch. I think it's critical in terms of quality control, but it becomes even more so when you're selling video or a video verification product. In our particular service, we are relating camera views from off-the-shelf products to zones off of off-the-shelf security systems. We clearly have to understand, or your installation staff and your sales staff also has to understand, what zones relate to what camera. It's critical. A quick tip that we've learned is that you have to insist that your sales team test the internet speed at your customer location. Even if you're selling passive, standalone video systems, that your end user is going to be able to log in and view. You've got to know what the internet speed is at that location. All our forms have that on there, the ability, not just the ability, but we want to quantify what that speed is at the site and get it onto the form to make sure that at the point of sale, that's when you want to bring the end user into the idea that you need to have a minimum, you need to have these elements. It's bad to figure that out, and it's not right for the client to figure that out at the install. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions. No more questions. We're still on the selling process. And what I've also learned, I've been doing this for about 12 months, almost 13 months now, is that you may have to hire a specific team. I've got a great traditional sales staff, but they sell this product and they sell these services. It's sort of, they're selling security, they're selling surveillance, and they're selling verification as sort of an oh by the way. They are, like many of our brethren in our industry, stuck in the past with this concept. I have a new salesperson that recently started with us. This person's in their 30s, and it was most interesting in that this person does not see the security system, they see the technology. I knew during the interview process, I'd interviewed a bunch of people that I was dealing with, a particularly interesting person, a sharp person. So I just did a full-on demo of the video product, and that was it. I got it, this person got it, they were very excited. What was most interesting to me is that they were just viewing this entire proposition differently. Our guys are selling a lot of this, and my traditional guys are selling a lot of it. They're adding it on to services, but this person sees it as slightly differently in that how could you want it without it as opposed to an add-on? It's very interesting. I also believe that the average customer that I run into in my market is just more technically savvy than many of our products. I have an anecdotal story that I tell a lot, and that is I had a customer with a large facility. We put in a 9-door sophisticated access control system. And at the commissioning of the system, I brought out the HID cards, a stack of them, to give to this end user. And he looked at me very strangely, and he held it between his fingers and held it up as though it were a piece of garbage, and literally, and looked at me and said, "What is with this Boogie Nights card, and do I actually have to carry this around with me everywhere I go?" It was a very startling moment for me. This is a very expensive system. Obviously, we adapted. We came to a token methodology in terms of interaction. But again, I think this is indicative of the fact that the average end user is more sophisticated than many of the products that we're selling and installing today. So what's in it for you? I am adding RMR to my existing clients. I've got dealers adding RMR to their existing clients. We think that ad is between $35 and $50 a month to add to the existing security signals. You can increase RMR that you get from new sales. And I also think this is important. You differentiate yourself from everyone else in your market in your ability to sell against competition. So I've got one question. It's from David. It's in regards to the minimum speed. So I'm going to let Matt answer that question.
So the minimum upstream bandwidth we need at a client site is bare minimum 512 kbps up. Now typically speeds are quoted in upstream and downstream bandwidth, and the downstream is always the higher number. So bottom line is somebody with the $12.95 a month DSL special who's getting 128 kbps up is not going to have a very good video experience, either through us or anybody else for that matter. So 512 kbps minimum, 768 and up recommended.
So when I turn that into normal alarm guy, basic DSL does not work. The way to look at what are we taxing their connection more than, say, if you just sold a standard DVR and you were giving the client live view, it's exactly the same. We have no more requirements than that. So back to this idea of making sure that your salespeople are measuring that. I think we should all be doing that at every site anyway. You need to make sure that you set a standard for your company for minimum upstream so that the client, even if they're just using client software, let alone our service, has a good experience. Because it turns out, regardless of how the quality of your install and the quality of the equipment and the cameras, if that connection is poor, obviously their interpretation of your entire company is poor. So, okay, so again, I think this is an important differentiator. I also strongly believe that this verification issue is going to spread through the country. I live in a town that's had a requirement of verification for 12 years, but it's popping up all around the country. I think that the idea that a normal security system is going to stand is going to be tough. Is a client, and by the way, the overwhelming majority of my accounts today are still a traditional security system. Is the client better with a traditional security system than no system? Of course they are. We all know statistically that with a yard sign and a window sticker from a quality local company, they're safer. But are they safer with a traditional security system, or are they safer with video associated with the alarm to your central station? Of that, there is no doubt in my mind that clearly they're safer with video associated with alarm events. And I don't think there's much argument there. All right, so what we're going to do is I'll review what we've covered, and then what I'd love to get is some questions. This is our first time doing this, and it's one way, so it's difficult to know what rhythm to have and how fast to go. So if we skip something you want to know, please start putting those questions into the chat side. And so let me just review this list real fast. So start with the market. When we first started doing this a little over a year ago, in terms of having this capacity, the ability to associate video with alarm events, it was a little overwhelming. It was like walking out of the ISC show. You know, too much information and your head starts to hurt. So what happened to us is my commercial guys started associating this service with commercial, medium-sized commercial accounts, meaning they would go sell a security system, mark it up full markup, sell a surveillance system, mark it full markup, and add this service in our market for about $35 a month. This was $35 on top of traditional security signals. The problem was that at our small systems team, we didn't really, it was a little unfocused until we developed that 3-camera package I showed you on the slide. Once we did that, it seemed like everybody galvanized around this. It made more sense to us, and we started making much more traction in terms of being able to go out and sell it. So we already had a traditional, 3 doors in a motion. For the record, in my marketplace, I sell that for $275 and $48 a month. So we added this 3-camera package at $850 and an additional $40 a month on. So for around $1,200, the end user gets a commercial-grade security system, commercial-grade surveillance system, and about $85 a month they got this service. And we've been doing really well with that. This planned package, again, my creation cost, my direct cost, somewhere between 12, 13, 14 months. Does not have my indirect costs, but that's a pretty great cost in terms of my direct cost. And then again, what you'll notice is that's a 3-camera package against a 4-channel system. We sell the additional camera for $175. There's a nice markup on the 4th camera. You're already there, one more pull, $65 camera. It's a nice margin on the 4th camera. So I think the point of this, though, is you're going to have to figure out who you're going to focus on and develop a package, your own package, with the security system you're already installing, as long as it's one of those compatible brands, a surveillance system that should be one of those compatible brands. And to me, a lot of the video really looks like Ford and Chevy. Features and benefits very similar. You're going to have to make a decision as to whether sticking with what you've got or if it's something that's on the list. But if it's on the list, you now have the ability to add reoccurring revenue to what you're installing on the surveillance side. So what can and should you sell them? Again, we're back to this sort of traditional bringing product to market. You have to figure out what you want to sell it for, what your market will bear, and then create this package. Marketing, again, to review, I think you have this opportunity to market this directly to your existing account base. The new business license list, which we should all be doing anyway, whether it's with traditional burglar alarms or with video or with this additional service. Today's client really wants to know what's new, what you're doing. I know that in the past it was sort of taboo, leave them alone, hope they send the check. But in today's world, I think the end user really wants and frankly needs to know that we're offering this type of product for them. So to your existing accounts, new business list, and moving forward as a differentiator. So explaining the value. It's my genuine belief that part of our success as an alarm company has been through a planned presentation. You've got to be able to have a planned presentation for the average salesperson to transmit this value, help them understand the value proposition. I also think you got to demo a product like this. The moment that your client receives, what my guys did is, part of our service is that when an alarm is tripped, the end user receives a text message. They're able to live view the facility, a text of what caused the alarm in their phone. So what my salespeople started to do is, it wasn't my idea, they just started adding the potential end user while they were standing in front of them into the interface from their smartphone, calling our office, having them trip the alarm, to that end user who receives that text message in the demo, It's a very real experience. They understand what it's like, and they can be explained the fact that the alternative is that when the alarm goes off, they'll be called and notified, but they won't know what really caused the alarm. It's a very strong sales tool. So back to this 8-step plan. We have an 8-step plan presentation. Happy to provide that to folks that are dealers, and we've adapted it to the voice of our dealers. Works very well. And review what's in it for you. I think adding reoccurring to your existing clients, adding reoccurring to your clients moving forward, a market differentiator. And I also think there's a certain, in my mind, inevitability that our country is unfortunately out of money as the rest of the world is. As we come to that reality, as the kicking and screaming ends, I think the reality of this is, we all understand, is that our municipalities are going to have a harder time floating bonds, and then therefore they're going to have a harder time just providing basic services, let alone responding to alarms. I think it's going to become our job to provide this service in this way, or alternative services that verify alarms. All right, so I'm going to check to see if there's any more questions. So David, you asked minimum speed. I hope we answered that for you. David's question here is, what about taking over existing CCTV and Berg systems? Is this all about new CCTV? Is this a sales approach? Great question. So we've had great success in takeovers. So by and large, with say the new business license list, or anyone that finds our company, or with our existing accounts, they've got security systems or vestiges of them if it's a takeover. And so a lot of times it's, if it's a Honeywell or if it's something that's out there that's compatible to us, we just add a relay and sell a surveillance system, tie them together, add the monthly. It's worked very well for us. In addition, we've had some hybrid versions of that where we've had clients that had an existing security system, had an existing surveillance system, and if it's analog and it's more than a couple years old, we've been able to sell them and upgrade on the DVRs at full markup, add the monthly, everybody wins. We've had an even more extreme hybrid where we had a convenience store where the guy had a recently installed surveillance system with a brand that was not compatible, didn't want to make a further investment in that. So what we did was we just installed a 4-channel DVR, put it in an alarm can above the existing control panel that was there, tapped off of 4 cameras that were looking at the hold-up buttons that we installed. To be clear, the hold-up buttons need to be screwed down into that camera view if they're going to be verified with video. And we basically sold the system for $1,500. I had about $600 in equipment in my investment, and it was a monthly for Panic Video. So absolutely, there's a lot of opportunity here for either existing, either takeovers or your existing account base, because these are just off-the-shelf control panels, a relay, and off-the-shelf video. Let's see, there's another question here. So Greg asked, I'm still having a difficult time understanding what the physical setup of a typical system would be. Could you please provide an example of a hardware setup that enables this service to operate? Absolutely. So I almost put another slide in on the iView Now side. I just didn't want to overslide you guys. So I'm going to ask Matt. We'll pop out of this presentation for just a moment, and Matt's going to bring up a slide that better illustrates the assembly and what it looks like. All right, so Matt, rather quickly, went into another presentation and pulled up a slide. Okay, so from a physical, what does it take on the site requirement? What we've got here is just, it's a Honeywell example. It could be any of the devices that are compatible on that list. But to be clear, it's just a control panel and a relay. So the control panel goes into an alarm state, whether that happens to be in a dial-up, internet, or radio, it phones home to the central station. This is about the central station. However, when the control panel is energized in the alarm state, it's energizing a relay by zone into the back of the DVR. The DVR is connected to the internet. So we receive a signal from the DVR or the NVR. We're basically using it like an IP communicator. So we go back to the box, we send a signal to the central station, a generic signal to the central station as contact ID via IP. We go back to that box, we extract pre-alarm and live view. So your operator receives the alarm, and we're compatible with full stages, micro key, and so as your central station receives the alarm, they're notified that there's video. Video then opens on a second monitor in a browser. Your operator can view the cameras on the site and a clip of what caused the alarm. If there's subsequent trips from zones as the bad people walk through the facility, subsequent clips produce subsequent clips. Simultaneously, the end user, it's rather interesting, receives a text message. As long as they've got an iPhone or a Droid, they can then click on the link in the text message that notifies them that there's been an alarm. They can live view the cameras in the facility, and they too can view the clip of what caused the alarm with pre-alarm. In addition, there's a button in the phone app so that they can call the central station if they choose to confirm or deny the alarm. So let me back up. Your installer just installs a security system in the traditional way. It is the primary method of communication to the central station. Via relay to the storage device, we're notified that there's an alarm event. We communicate with the box, extract the video, present live view to the central station, as well as to the end user. So commissioning the DVR, we've written a manual for each of the DVRs that are compatible with our service. Your installer installs the surveillance system in a traditional way. When they commission the DVR, they set settings very specifically according to the manual. Things like when motion is recorded in the box, what signals are sent from the box, from the standard menu of the DVR or the NVR. So Greg, I hope that answers your question. So Fraser asked, do we store the video received at our station? So to be clear, we are not a central station. So in this diagram that shows iView Now, it's supposed to graphically represent the cloud. All our video is stored by an extraordinarily large company called Rackspace. It's located in Texas. So yes, we are storing event-based clips at our facility in Rackspace in Texas. So to be clear, it's sort of an interesting workflow. Your central station receives all the alarm events, links to the video, or stored in your central station for 12 months to this video, 12 months minimum. It can be stored longer if the central station chooses to. But we're not streaming all of the video off the site. Right now, we're pretty comfortable saying that the paradigm of constant streaming is not cost effective. Streaming events off and storing them in the cloud is a very effective way to protect the clips from the intrusion. If the person gets to the lockbox and gets the DVR off the site, the clip is still gone to the central station. From the central station's perspective, the transactional database that is the central station. So central station software just does a phenomenal job at receiving those signals, distributing them to the operator, and being accountable to the UL standard for those signals. However, having had a central station in the past, it's my experience that they have not done such a great job at video. They tend to write integrations specific to clients' requests, and then they're almost like a jar of mayonnaise. The moment they've been written, they start to deteriorate and become less effective. We think our job is almost in that of a middleware, and we're responsible for integration of video to the central station. I hope that answers your question, Fraser. So Christopher asked if there's your cost on add-on equipment. To be clear, we're not selling any of this equipment. In this particular example, which is a very simple one, it's a Vista control panel. It's a Honeywell 4204 relay, and in that diagram is a Honeywell HRDP DVR. We are not selling equipment. We are selling the relationship between the equipment and the central station and the end user as a service. All right, I don't see any other questions. Are there any other questions for us? So Fraser's got another question. So our station operator receives a link that points back to your services and can view the video over that link for up to 12 months, correct? Yes, sir. So, and to be clear, we are storing the clips for a minimum of 12 months. The link remains live in the event in the central station software for that minimum of 12 months. The end user gets about a month's worth of storage of clips in their portal, to be clear on the differentiation between the amount of storage. Minimum 12 months at the central, 1 month at the end user. It's a great question. Any other questions for us? So Fraser asked if our fees are based on per camera per site. It's another great question. I should have clarified that. For us, it's about the site. It's not about the camera. There's a maximum of 32 cameras, whether those are IP cameras or multiple DVRs, but 32 cameras at the site. I'm going to make it really simple. So let's just decide that it's two 16-channel DVRs at the site. It's about the site. For us, then it starts to look like bandwidth for the maximum amount of devices and end users, and that's why we've picked 32. The other thing that my experience of installing this service and selling it on the street has been that larger than 32 cameras starts to be almost inherently more complex. I think we would probably all agree as alarm folks, and it requires a different solution. Our niche, our spot, is verification, simple verification, preferably off of a building that is closed with the intent that no one should be there. Can we go outdoors? Absolutely. So the $12 fee is about the idea that we're going to relate video to an alarm state with a maximum of 32 cameras on the site. In an oversimplified way, it would be like two 16-channel DVRs. Hope that answers your question. So Todd's question is, are our systems leased or owned? I think that's a great debate. It might start to look like your market and your methodology. Ours are sold. That 850 and the 40 is a sold system with a minimum 3-year agreement. Our standard agreement is 5 years. Part of our 8-step presentation is that we train on is 5 years. The way we overcome the 5-year objection is that we will guarantee the price for the 5 years, but it's 5 years. If the salesperson cannot overcome the objection of 5 years, they call their sales manager, our sales manager, and they're allowed to bring it down to 3. But it's 3-year minimum in order to get that creation cost to make sense. So Jericho asks, what do you need to program into the DVR, NVR to transmit to iViewNow? To review, it's just standard settings. It's going to be about when the DVR is recording motion. And all of these DVRs have what looks like an email functionality, but we're using it essentially as an SMTP server to send us those signals. Standard menu-driven functions are set from a manual that we've written for each of these devices for their compatibility. The last thing that the installer does, though, is put in an admin password. That admin password locks down the DVR so that the end user can't inadvertently change the settings and undo the magic, just like we do in a control panel. However, there's also a user password. The end user still can obviously record video, swim around the video, and do normal end user functionality within the client software. So Fraser's question here is, do you have additional charges over and above the 12 per month based on usage or bandwidth? The answer is yes. We've essentially grouped this into 200 signal blocks. We're happy to go through that application of the overages. But to be clear, we think as designed, if I try to give like the ideal end state, this would be 32 cameras, standard security system, couple of relay boards to get functionality off of it, in a business that is locked and closed and not meant to have trespass. So then, therefore, if the system is initiated and goes into alarm, and your central station receives the signal, if there's anyone there at all, we need to use the responsible party list to figure out if they're supposed to be there, and if not, we need to get the police there as quick as possible. That's the scenario that the $12 was designed for. If the product is going to be used outside or in a yard, and if additional signals are received, what we would describe as excessive signals to any of our central stations, there are additional fees associated. And like most products today, the market has pushed those into sort of a good, better, best, minimum, middle, and maximum amount for that price. So $12 is from the initial group. That's the minimum for the central station. I hope that answers that question, sir. That's the questions I've got so far. Any other questions? We've still got 14 people on the call, so I'm not sure if anyone else has got a question for me. All right. I'll have Matt go back to the closing slide just in case anyone needs any information from it. Okay, Christopher has asked if we'll send the slides. Absolutely. What we'll do is we'll send the slide presentation as a PDF to everyone that attended. Christy's information is here. If you're on the webinar, I'm guessing you have Christy's information. This was really about the concept of selling verification. We went pretty far into specifics about our service. The best way to do it is for us to just do a demo. It's all online. We can just do a quick demo for you and show you the functionality. If you've got questions, regardless of whether you tend to be a dealer or a dealer, about selling video verification and or video as a service, just give us a call, give us a contact. We really like what we do, and we're happy to have a discussion about it. So thanks for your patience. I hope this wasn't too bumpy. It's the first one like this we've done. If you've got feedback on a better way to do this, or things you'd like to have seen, or things you'd like for us to emphasize, it would be awesome if you send us an email regarding that. Otherwise, I appreciate your time, and thanks for your patience. Thank you.